welcome to WRPL Whirlpool, All Things Consumed. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And we're just gonna have a little fun today. We have a little game we like to play called This Meets That. You know, you would read on the back of boxes in Blockbuster. I know I'm dating myself extremely here,
I miss Blockbuster.
But you know what Blockbuster is. There's enough funny memes out there about how it used to be a thing that even if you weren't old enough for it to be a thing for you, you know what I'm talking about.
There's a Blockbuster game that you can buy at Walmart. Actually, a lot of fun.
Excellent game.
Yeah,
if you have
pick
4
that
people, play that game.
We're sponsored by the one remaining Blockbuster left on the planet.
I think it's going under, too. I think it's like finally closing.
Oh, it's a shame.
It is. I know.
Well.
Oh, well.
Anyway.
So you would pick up a movie, and it would be called, like, Trancers. You're like, oh, what's that? And on the back, some nobody Joe Schmo reviewer would be like, oh, it's the Terminator meets Little Orphan Annie. And you go, what? What the fuck kind of movie is that? And I know that's the whole point, is to get you kind of hooked of like, hey, you like movie A, you like movie B, you're going to love this movie. But sometimes they're really stupid, and or they'd be like, it's like Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction on acid. And it's just like, so fucking dumb. But it makes a really fun game. So here are the rules. Steve will pick a movie, and I will pick a movie, and then we will say them at the same time, and we will try to pitch that movie where on the box it would say, it's like this meets that. All right, we have not picked any movies beforehand. We like to do this on the fly. If we do this more often, we will have a better system, maybe a computerized thing, maybe it's a hat. We'll figure it out. But we're just going...
It's all very technical.
Very technical. And it depends on what type of hat it is. I mean, it's important. Yeah. Do you do a bowler hat and a top hat? Do you do one of those, like, news cap, newsboy caps? It can't be a baseball hat. Mm-hmm. Baseball cap.
It's just offensive to hats at that point, frankly.
Because it's not really a hat, it's a cap. So, yeah. All right. So, I haven't thought of a movie yet. Have you thought of a movie?
It has come to me recently.
Yeah, okay. Let me think. And it's always fun to, like, you could say The Firm, and it's like, wow.
Well, now I gotta change it.
Damn it, I was gonna say The Firm.
I was gonna say, it'd be, like, we've never done it in all the times we've done this, but, like, for one time, I'd like to just, like, we say it at the same time, it's just the same movie, it's like, look at us. It's never happened.
It'd be like, Tremors 2, Aftershocks. Damn!
Yeah, it'd be something real obscure. It wouldn't be, like,
Leprechaun 4, in space! Alright, so yeah, it's fun to do something that's really broad, something that is identifiable when you just pick The Firm or, I don't know, The Firm 2. They're just not so fun.
Even more firm.
So fucking firm. Try to bend it. You can't. It's The Firm.
Okay, I'm ready. I already wrote mine down.
It's not one of my favorite movies, but I think there's enough stuff in it that would probably work well. All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Interstellar.
Dodgeball. Interstellar and Dodgeball.
Interstellar.
Okay.
Meets.
I'm glad because, like, not that it necessarily matters, but I think a drama and a comedy lend themselves to, like, you really have to think versus, like, if you do 2 dramas, it's like, all right, you kind of know the pace. It's like, do you go the more comedy route? Do you go the more drama route? Or
and if you do 2 comedies, it's like, oh, it's 40-Year-Old Virgin and Euro Trip. Like, okay, one of those movies. That movie probably already exists.
Yeah.
National Lampoon's 40-Year Trip.
40-year trip to
Europe,
Virgin Town.
All right, things. Okay, I'm gonna make almost like a pros and cons list of like what's in this, what's in that.
Okay, in Dodgeball, there is Dodgeball.
Ooh, okay. And you could say it's like underdogs versus evil corporation.
Yep.
I need notes, otherwise I'm gonna forget it.
There's a cast of misfits who band together to complete a goal.
There's
pun names of teams.
Sure, yeah. Like the rule, like just Interstellar has space stuff. So what if it's like the dive, dodge, dip, duck, and dodge? Like had something to do with piloting,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. So, and Interstellar is, there's wormholes and kind of time travel, but I'm not really necessarily worried about that at the moment.
Dying Earth.
Dying Earth, yep.
Abandoning your family.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, that could be do something like abandoning your family or abandoning your misfit friends, which I guess, Peter LaFleur kind of does near the end of Dodgeball. Yeah. Why do I remember his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so here's my pitch just off the top of my head,
sure.
And then you're going to just jump in with your own thoughts. Absolutely. And we'll meld them together. Okay, so the year is sometime in the distant future in space. And we have a space colony on the moon or Mars, doesn't matter. Maybe we've invented space travel or whatever, and you can go through a wormhole and end up in the future. And that's how humans so there's still maybe modern day humans and obviously whatever it is modern, but people of today in this current 2022 or whatever. And you go through this wormhole, and then you go to the new colony, because Earth is dying. Yeah, I got it. All right, Earth is dying. And so the only way for humans to possibly live is to go through this wormhole where we have now found another planet somewhere in a galaxy, universe, we don't know where it is, and we've just built our society there. But in order to sort of live on this planet, we have to fight these creatures that are sort of on the borders. It was a planet that was inhabited before we got there, and so we've established a base, and we're trying to grow it out because more humans are coming through the wormhole to try and make lives, but it's all tight in there, and so the only thing we can do is fight these things. So this cast of kooky characters who've all assembled who've got on the ship to go to this new planet. Maybe they won some sort of lottery. They're just a bunch of nobodies, and now they're going to this planet. But the planet, the spaceship crashes, and it runs off course or whatever and lands. So they're not in the safe zone. So now they have to fight their way back. But now there's these aliens who they don't know, and these group of people just happen to be a dodgeball team on Earth right now. So, they don't have any weapons. They just, have their lucky dodgeballs that they brought with them. And this is where I lost all train of thought. Okay. Because now they're well, go ahead. I got us a starting point.
I'm going to piggyback off it. Okay,
right,
so they've left Earth because it's dying and everything. They crash land on an alien planet. Mm-hmm. The aliens... it's kind of gladiatorial. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's to earn your freedom or something, or earn your citizenship or something. You have to survive the gauntlet, and it's a crazy maze and obstacles and stuff like that. But at the end, all the gladiator type people, they just chuck huge fucking rocks. You have to survive. You have to dodge all these rocks and everything, and if maybe it's a time limit, maybe it's X amount of rocks or whatever, you get your freedom. And maybe this is for prisoners or something. If you can get through this thing and you can dodge all these rocks and everything, we will say you're not guilty and we'll give you your freedom. But most people don't, because the peasants of the world are weak and small, mm-hmm. and the gladiators are big and strong, and they're just lobbing these rocks as hard as they can, and most people die.
These aliens are purple cobra-looking things.
Sure, yeah, they could be snake-like. You need arms, and I think maybe
they wouldn't be snake creatures, but just have snake features.
4 arms, or you could even have a more tentacly, like a snake's tail.
Sure.
And so that allows them to whip rocks. Maybe multiple races. Because this planet is close to this wormhole, black hole thing, if most people trying to get through it, if they don't have the right technology, they get kicked out, mm-hmm. and they land on this planet. So there's tons of races from all around the galaxy.
Oh, okay.
So it's just kind of you guys are outsiders, you want to be a part of our society, you got to get through this gauntlet. So our hero, Captain Hero and his team, they're prisoners and they're being forced to go through this dodgeball tournament sort of thing. And a lot of them are getting picked off. But our main guy, he's just good as hell. And so he survives everything, he dodges it, comes out unscathed, and the Emperor is just like, impossible, nobody ever does this, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, fine, I'm a man of my word, I will let you go. And he's just like, no, I want someone to go in my place. And maybe the next person in line was this little old lady alien or something. And he's just like I'm going to give it up my win to her. And it's just like, okay, because it is law or whatever, it's part of it. And so the little old lady goes and is like, well, if you want your freedom, you have to do this again. And so other people try and they die, and when it's his turn again, he succeeds. And he lets another one go. And he's so good at this that he's actually freeing all these people who are criminals or prisoners, the evil revolution that's going to take down the bad emperor or whatever. And so he's sacrificing his potential freedom. He gets his whole crew out, and eventually...
Now, I feel like the emperor wouldn't want anyone to leave like that. Like there's a sick fascination with this. So is he making the stuff harder? Is he like trying to sabotage it so this guy does die? Because I feel like after like the third or fourth win, he'd be like, all right, let's just shoot this guy in the face.
Sure, but I mean, you could write it as like, this is our ancient thing. Like, this is the gods told us this is how we do it. You write it anyway where it's like, you have to do it. And maybe that's a thing, like, the king is so like, he's letting too many of our people go. We have to change the rules. We have to throw rocks that are on fire now, and now the pits have extra snakes in them. And
alien snakes.
Alien snakes, yeah, they have like human faces with snake bodies.
That's so scary.
And so then when he starts going, he'll be like, oh, the gods have talked to me. They think we are not doing it properly. And so we start creating more bullshit rules and stuff. But, Captain Hero, he's good at this for whatever reason. Maybe it's hard for these other aliens because it's like, they only have one leg, so
they don't have opposable thumbs.
They don't have, but us, we are able to move and stuff, and maybe we're bigger than some of the other aliens, so it's not as tough, and so they make it tougher and tougher. And then the people start seeing like, well, the king, he's kind of full of shit. He's just making up rules as he goes, and this was like law. This was the word of God, and he's just changing it. And so maybe an uprising starts to happen, and then our hero helps save the day.
All right, well, piggybacking off of that, what if instead of rocks, because that just seems like, they're rocks, they're real heavy, you can get little ones that you can throw
but the guys throwing them are like Goro.
Right, so but this guy can only dodge, he's not hitting anybody bad.
Sure. Okay.
To make it more of like a competition challenge thing, and like maybe have some stakes because maybe he meets an alien character who he like befriends, and it's like, oh, we want to see this guy make it out of here alive and all that kind of stuff. Glib Glob. Yep.
Glib Glob.
Yep. What if we do is, maybe there is trials or whatever to get to the final game or a challenge or whatever. But maybe on this planet they have these like shining, glowing balls that are dodgeball like they're easily throwable, but like when they hit you, maybe they, explode in a certain way. Like if they hit living matter, then something happens. Like maybe that person just explodes and dies, or maybe
sucked into the wormhole.
You just get covered in something, or maybe once you just get hit, you're out, and then you're if your team loses, your whole team gets executed. That way, it's not like someone gets hit and they instantly die. Like they can come back in the game. They can still do the rules of dodgeball, but maybe this isn't something that they have established as a challenge. Maybe before it was all like just gladiator style, like our big guy versus you, and pretty much almost everyone always loses. But like he comes in and he's like, well, on Earth we have a different way to settle our problems, and he's the best at dodgeball. So that's what he pitches. Like if you want to challenge me, I get to challenge you in my thing. And maybe the king is just like so interested in this. It's like, oh, an earthly challenge. Okay, like let's see what you got. And he just like kind of comedically explains dodgeball, and then it's like, Well, that seems kind of boring. I'll play your human game, but we're gonna add our own twist, and then so it's like then you add in whatever fantastical alien element you want. So you just have a normal game of dodgeball, but with heightened alien stakes, and so it's not like just chucking rocks at each other, because that seems like it might be kind of boring. But if you have some sort of like interesting looking alien laser ball or something, and that way you can like have a normal dodgeball game, and that could lead to like wacky antics of just like, look at these silly aliens playing dodgeball, but it is for like high stakes life and death stuff. And then, you know, is this obviously this would be like a comedy, but you could do it in a way where it's just like human, like not human, but lives are at stake and everything, and then you could still do the uprising thing, because it's like, oh, we can beat their warriors and stuff, and then maybe the king is just like insulted that his team keeps losing, or it's like, okay, if we beat your team, then you have to face me in dodgeball, and then the king gets like his greatest warriors, and they're even bigger than like the other teams that they've assembled, and all this other stuff. Or maybe they have a dodgeball tournament with like all the inmates, and they all have to fight separate teams, and then the last team wins their freedom if they beat the king and his team, and of course they're just like, you know, the Monstars or whatever, essentially. And then you just have a big final dodgeball tournament, and like if they make a bet, it's like, if I win, you let all the prisoners go, but if you win, we all become your slaves or whatever and work in your space mine or whatever, you know. So you could really do something like that, I think, as opposed to just, you know, throwing rocks and...
See, with yours, it's an obvious comedy.
Yeah.
And I was trying to go like really realistic, high stakes, gritty.
Oh.
You know, this isn't funny. I'm just trying to incorporate, you know, how do you incorporate dodgeball without saying this is dodgeball? That's why it's like just throwing rocks. If you get hit, you fucking die. You're out.
Yeah. I guess I was leaning more into dodgeball with like very little to do with Interstellar whatsoever, and you were going very much Interstellar. Well, not necessarily,
but sci-fi.
Yeah,
so,
sci-fi. Yeah.
Like
Interstellar would be hard to.
Yeah, how do you work more Interstellar into this?
Yeah, unless, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be really though. But it's like, I guess you could do it in a way where he's the first human to go through this wormhole in the hopes of like finding a planet to colonize, and so I mean that's essentially the whole plot of Interstellar. And he lands on this one, and he just gets captured by these people, and he just like, the NASA was really into like, they have their own dodgeball league just for like fun, and it just like happens to be the thing he's you know, is good at. Because I just don't want it to be like he's a, you know, a Marine who joined NASA and now is just like, oh, I'm a great warrior. Like I kind of wanted to be, I imagine it as like kind of like a guy who's like clearly out of his element being on an alien planet, but also like isn't necessarily like the greatest at everything just because.
Sure.
It's, you know, dodgeball, the underdog story where it's like, yeah, he's an underdog because he's literally a person in a whole alien planet, but he's also an underdog because he's not a hero. He's not this great warrior or anything. It's just like he's just a normal dude, you know, Idiocracy style kind of thing. Sure. And then he just...
Well, I call him Captain Hero just because I couldn't think of a better name, and I wasn't picturing like John Hamm or anything, but like even in mine, because it's like the aliens could be all types of things, and they all suck because the ruling class, they're good at throwing rocks at people who are really bad at dodging rocks. Whereas then you throw in a human, they've never seen anybody like us. And yeah, you start throwing rocks at us, well, maybe we're a little bigger, a little faster. They're, you know, maybe their gravity's a little lighter, so we could jump a little more and use it to our advantage, when everybody else just gets flattened. So it's like he becomes this hero, and maybe he was like, he's kind of the schlub of the ship that they are on, but he's just really good at this. So like, you could still beat Jack Black, you know, or the dude from Balls of Fury.
And I guess
but it's just taken a little more seriously.
Yeah, I guess you could do some stuff with it too, where it's like, because he's on the planet, like you said, his gravity's different, so maybe it makes him seem stronger than he actually is, at least on our planet. Or even something where like his ship crashes and then he comes in contact with some alien goop of some kind that just happens to enhance.
We become Superman because of their green sun or whatever, and it affects us, or they feed us food, and it's just like, oh my god, this is like a mushroom power up in Mario Bros.
We just happen to have the right
the right biology.
Biology too.
So yeah, it's like you have these guys and they're chucking rocks and stuff, but it's because the gravity is a little bit lighter, you're having him just like kind of able to catch it and whip it back even harder, and they're killing guys, and people are just like, oh my god, this is our savior, look how great he is. And it's like, well, I'm really not. It's just I have these advantages on this planet. But if we went the more comical route and it was a more legit dodgeball thing, I think it would be fun to do the interstellar thing of you go to lots of different planets and it's like it's this huge tournament, and it's like this one the gravity's really heavy, so it's like they're trying to throw it and the ball's barely going anywhere, but they're fighting against people who that's their normal thing. And in this one it's a water planet and stuff, and so they're like up to their chest in water, and they have to almost kind of water polo it.
Okay.
And this one the gravity's really light, so they're like jumping really high, and maybe they could even lose a guy going into the atmosphere or something. It's like so you do a kind of a comedic thing of, I don't know, I guess we introduce dodgeball to them and it takes off, and it's just like, this is how we settle arguments in the Galactic Federation now. Earth is now accepted into it because they introduced dodgeball. In dodgeball, it's like, look, we don't have to go to war. We can just throw these rubber balls and it can be peaceful and it's a nice tournament stuff, and we don't have to like nuke each other's planets. And that's just how we resolve our problems now. And so then you get to one where maybe the king is a little more of a dickhead and has his own ideas for, he wants to take down, maybe his planet isn't allowed to be in the Federation. They keep applying and stuff, but they keep getting denied because they are like crazy war-hungry people or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. It's like, there's stuff you could play. And I think to add another interstellar thing, that crazy weird robot that they have?
Yeah.
You would just have like something like that could maybe, he's the only good player because it can adapt to each planet.
Right.
So it's just like, he just transforms into a thing, and that could be like a shock to all these. Because the one I imagine when that's a little darker, it's a little more medieval, and they don't have a lot of technology and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, they see this walking metal slab turn into like a person. That'd be some good stuff too.
Yeah, I just think, I'm not against the dark and gritty route, for lack of a better term. I think it'd just be a hard sell dramatically to just have sort of like this silly concept, and it could work. I'm just having a hard time like imagining it not being a comedy, but maybe that's just my simple-minded brain.
I just look at it more like this is Gladiator, but instead of Gladiator,
but that's not the challenge.
I know, I'm just saying, like, think of, it's a Gladiator, but you use dodgeballs instead of swords.
Yeah.
So think of it in that terms instead of something silly. And I think it could work. Maybe not, but
yeah. Or like you could have, I guess, a character who like, it doesn't matter that the aliens speak English off the bat or whatever. It's just like, the guy's just like, we're gonna kill you, or the alien's like, oh, we're gonna kill you, and then he's just like, guys, can't we just like play dodgeball or something? And they're just like, what's dodgeball? And he's just like, oh, and then he like tries to riff. He's like, it's actually a game for our Earth's greatest warriors, and like this is how we best each other. And it's like, I'm intrigued, and sort of pitches this idea. It's like, okay, then we'll play your silly game, and it's just like, he just has big rocks. He's like, no, guys, it's rubber balls. And I'm like, what the hell's rubber? It's like, this is all we got. And then now it's like, shit. Like, I've screwed myself because now I have to play a game with, like, deadly implications.
Yeah, that'd be funny. It's like they have all the dodgeballs and stuff, and it's like bouncing off the big monsters, and they're just kind of like, what's the point of this? That didn't even hurt. They pop all the balls, and it's like, this is how we are going to play. And it's a big fucking spike ball or something, or ball on fire.
It honestly seems like this would be a video game more than a movie, where it's just like, oh, it's instead of dodgeball, it's spike ball, and it's just like you have giant goblin creatures just like throwing big heavy things at each other.
Yeah, and it's like you're the human team and every opponent. So it's like, oh, these are the magma people, so they're throwing fireballs at you. Oh, these are the ice people, and they're throwing. You move a little slower, and they're throwing ice balls.
Yeah. Each level offers different challenges. This is also a video game podcast now, too. Apparently.
Sure. Yeah. So do we have a name for this besides Spaceballs?
That would be the easy one, but unfortunately I think I've heard that title somewhere before.
Yeah, somewhere.
I think some guy named Schwartz wrote it, maybe. I don't know. But title for a space movie with dodgeballs. I wish I knew. I bet there's some subculture of like dodgeball that has like a ton of like terminology that we don't know.
Yeah.
But dodgeball and outer space legacy.
Fuck. It's just Dodgeball 2. We're gonna get Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller back, and they are gonna be shot in
60-year-old space adventures.
Yep. That they totally would be able to hack it.
Well, we don't have a title yet, but can you see an actor? Like, do you have a visual of like if you went this route, who would be good? Like, sort of. I mean, I guess I am imagining it more of as like a sort of not doofus in terms of like he's stupid by any means, but just like lazy slap. I guess a Vince Vaughn type in Dodgeball, but not Vince Vaughn. Like, I'm not seeing him as
like
like
a
the
Ben
guy.
Schwartz or Andy Samberg, someone like that.
Oh yeah, I think Andy Samberg might be a solid choice.
Because like whatever kind of cast of kooky people on his crew, like you could get some other really good comedians for that.
Yeah, I think he could play space traveler enough, whether he's like actually works for NASA or if he's just some guy who gets put on the ship that a bunch of people are going to, and he thinks the ship is crashing or something, and so he gets an escape pod and this is just where he lands or whatever. But the ship actually is just like turbulence from the wormhole or whatever.
But they see the pod has left, so like maybe they have to orbit the planet, and they have that like sort of prime directive or whatever. It's like there's living life down there. We can't interrupt it. It's like, but we got to save our guy. And like, well, he's playing dodgeball. I think he's doing all right.
Yeah, you could do some sort of thing with that. But I like Andy Samberg as a choice because I think he's good enough to pull off, being the fish out of water character and would offer some good comedy.
I want Paul Giamatti as the Goblin King or whatever he's called.
Yeah. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a heavy prosthetics, or it could be mocap or something. That's fine. Let's do No, it probably had to be CG because like if you're doing a lot of moving around and playing dodgeball, you don't want tears and sweat on makeup and stuff like that. But if he's just the king and sitting in the throne, we could do some prosthetics on him.
Yeah, we could make it work.
Yeah.
We just have to get a $150 million budget or so.
Sure.
Yep. Cool.
So, and that's the thing. Like, if I was to pitch this movie, I wouldn't pitch it as Interstellar meets Dodgeball for my version. It would be like, it's this gritty kind of fantasy space thing where it's like you have to go through these trials to fight for your life and lots of different alien characters, and it's violent and stuff, and like, oh, and you don't mention dodgeball. It's just like, oh, they're throwing stones. Stoning is a thing as punishment. That makes sense. For yours, being more comedic, you would definitely have to be like, it's dodgeball in space, and like really sell up the goof to it. But I can see it's like, I would pitch mine, and they're like, we love it, let's greenlight it. And then after 50 rewrites and all these producers getting in, and then I get to your screwball comedy and stuff, and it's like, this is not what I wanted at all. I want a giant rock killing people.
Yeah, and then I would pitch mine, they'd be like, great, sounds fantastic, wouldn't change a word.
Andy Samberg, we can get him.
Yeah. All right,
that was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to cross
I wish we had a title.
Yeah.
If you have a title, add us, unless I think of one in the next,
absolutely.
Next couple minutes.
All right, you want to do another?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know why I'm writing this down. We're about to say it to each other.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
The King's Speech. I've never seen Extract.
Ah, really?
Yeah. I mean, I know what it's essentially about, but
that's a shame. We should each have like a backup in case.
Oh, okay. Well, I can change mine too.
No, but your King's Speech is a good one, but I don't want to think of one to match with King's Speech.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Then
I mean, I can always bring it back in a later episode.
That's true.
This is what the whole jar is for. All right. I'll pick a different one.
All right.
Okay. Got it.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
The Wrestler. Django? Django and the Wrestler.
Okay. You have that whole like Mandingo fighting when it comes to slavery. So right off the top of my head,
This is just, I'm sorry to stop your thought. This is a question I have. Is Mandingo like just an official term for like a black fighter? Or is it, I mean, it's a slur now, correct?
Yes. I think I want to say yes, that's what it means. You were a big slave who fought to the death. And then I think it became just, a slur for sure. And then
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
But I think coming out of our mouths sounds really bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to edit out all the times I said Mandingo except for the first one because it pertains to the wrestling.
Got it. I was just curious. Okay.
All right,
I've learned something.
So
I think.
Maybe. So you have a slave owner. This is his bag. You know your Calvin Candy types. And all he cares about is these big fights with other slave owners. He has the biggest, best. He's breeding these people and training them to be his fighters. And so he has one that he hasn't been defeated, but he's been around for a while, and he's getting to the end of his career. And this plantation owner is like, it's time to retire him, and maybe he tells him, it's like, you've won so much for me, I'm going to give you your freedom, but he's actually taking him out into the woods to shoot him or something like that. Well, our wrestler character...
Because I guess he'd be worried that, what if he, falls in love or, meets other, gets another slave owner, finds him and whatever, and starts, they recognize him. Because I imagine at this point, if he, keeps winning, he's, he's a legend around the area. It's like, well, he's my best breeding horse or whatever. We can't let him make other fighters in the future for
and that'd be a fun thing, you won so many times, or maybe that's even a deal he made for him. It's like, you win me 100 matches, I'll give you your freedom. And so on his last day, it's just like, I want you to have sex with all my lady slaves and stuff. And it's like, oh, what a fun, sexy time he's gonna have. He's gonna bang all these ladies, but it's like, I just want to get his stock just in case. And then,
I think that'd be a fun twist, not something you really tell. It's just like,
I think you would know by the time we get to this point that he would be breeding wrestlers, or that any newborn child would be at least put into a training program, because he doesn't necessarily have a plantation to work, but he's inherited these slaves and he's got to do something with them. So that's his bread and butter is just slave fighting.
Sorry to interrupt, because I think you were going on a great tangent. I like it already. But maybe he already won his freedom, and he started a family, and his kids are a little bit more grown up or whatever, and then the slave owner comes back, and it's just like, oh, you had kids or whatever, and it's like, they look like they could hold their own too, kind of thing. And obviously they're not quite ready, but maybe he kidnaps them or whatever for some time. And it's like, okay, now he's got to go back to his... Or maybe the owner's like, I've lost a bunch of fights since you left. It's like, I need you to come back and win me some. And, he's old and grizzled now. And it's like, so now he has to, fight to save his kids from, suffering the same fate he did.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be worked in if, he has a rough life, but at least he's not working the fields and stuff. He's, justifying it for himself. There are other slaves here. I have my woman, and she has had my kids, and this isn't perfect, but we have it better than some. And so then when he thinks I'm gonna win my freedom, he's also gonna win their freedom as well. So then when they take him out to the woods to shoot him or whatever, he realizes something's up, fights back, kill those guys, goes on the run, and then he has to kind of go on the underground circuit, kind of like Mickey Rourke had to do the more hardcore stuff.
Right.
And so he starts doing some fucked up shit to survive. And time goes on, and maybe he hears that his former owner is promoting a new person, and it is his son, and he always wanted his son to be like a learned man and not a fighter, and this isn't a life and stuff like that. So then
I haven't. But go.
I would just say like after he learns this stuff, he kind of comes back to take his Django style revenge and all the fucked up people around it, and maybe he goes around to all the other plantation owners whose slaves he had to fight and kill, and he's taking them out one by one and freeing their people. And so he's not only is he kind of getting revenge on the people who forced him to fight, but he's also stopping these people from ever having to fight, and they can take their families and go. And then comes back to our Calvin Candy character, and maybe captures him and like is like, oh, you're gonna fight your son. I don't know.
So yeah, that's what you're thinking? Yeah, that was kind of where I was going. Just like maybe he does go and like maybe he's kind of like in disguise or whatever, or maybe he's like cleaned himself up and he's pretending to be, you know, like a gentlemanly version of himself, even though he's like not that person. But it's just like I need to sort of integrate myself. Maybe I'm one of the, you know, the ones that like the white people sort of like, oh yes, he can come to our parties, but like we won't want him like touch his stuff. But, you know, you get the idea. And but no one recognizes him because he's been out the game for 15 years now or whatever, like now however old his son is, and he goes in there and, you know, meets his son. He's just like, hey, I'm here to get you out here. You don't have to keep doing this. But maybe his son's like really into it. He's like, I like this life. Like I'm a star here. Everyone treats me well. I don't have to work the fields. Like I'm the best there is. They even say I'm better than you and all this other stuff. He's like, I don't care about that. Like they're gonna like use you up and try and kill you. And like the son's just not having any of it. It's like, you know, this guy treats me well, and like it's the only thing I'm good at. It's like what you and mom made me for, even though it's clearly not. And then he has
you weren't part of the breeding program. You were made out of love. You know, like she got pregnant on their own.
Yeah, it's like, and they probably told him the son died in childbirth or whatever, but really they took him. Maybe. So that's why he like came. And you can work out like how he finds out that's his actual son.
He's got a crazy birthmark as a baby, and it's just like, look, he's got this mark.
Or maybe he doesn't even know it's his son. Maybe he gets brought back, and then like he hears the story about like this great fighter and everything. He's like this young person or whatever. And I mean, I think it's one of those twists that like you would probably see coming from like a mile away. Like the second like the son died in childbirth, it's like
or you never see him be born. You don't even know that the woman is pregnant. Like he's with his girl and stuff, and they talk about like having a kid one day. It's like, oh, maybe someday, and they sleep together. She gets pregnant, but that happened to be the same day that he is taken out to be killed, and so she just had to have this kid without him.
Yeah. And then you get to the final fight, and then their fight, and like at this point I'm sure he knows it's his son, and maybe this, and like you can still do that whole speech of just like, I didn't know you were alive, like I'm here to get you out of here, like, I want to get you out of here, like you don't have to do this. If you win this fight, they're probably going to take you out into the woods and try and shoot you like they did me, and maybe it's just not happening. So I don't care if I die, like I've done so much fucked up stuff that if they kill me, like I probably deserve it, that kind of thing. But like I'm going in this fight and I'm going to win, and you can either like sit there and take it, or you can fight me, and we can just see who's like the better man or whatever. And maybe they have this fight, and like he doesn't know, like he doesn't want to kill his son, and so like maybe he's holding back, but it's like I just want to like kill this man. And you kind of do, like he dies in the end, like very much like it's believed that the wrestler dies, you know, from his heart stuff or whatever. But it's like I'm gonna go out. It's like maybe he like does beat his son, but instead of delivering the finishing blow, like kills the Calvin Candy type or whatever, and then they take him out in the woods and kill him. But his son, like while they're doing that, maybe his son is able to escape, or like they fight, he beats his son and he refuses to kill him, and so like, all right, well then we're just gonna kill you both. And then they both go out to the woods, and then he fights those guys off so his son can get away, and like he gets his revenge and saves his son, even though it cost him his life. And he still, but like to everyone else, they just freed him, and he still goes out the greatest fighter of all time for everyone who was there. Although I guess everyone would find out that the Calvin Candy and stuff was murdered, unless you do some sort of way where it's just like, I don't know. But then you could do something. I think that sounds real cool, and I would see the shit out of that movie.
Yeah. And I think you gotta work in the Christoph Waltz character in a way. So I think like after he escapes and he's like trying to do stuff just to survive. He could just meet some white dude that maybe is down on his luck or whatever, and Christoph Waltz recognizes him as like, oh my God, I saw your fight and you took out so and so. Like, you're one of the best. Hey, we can make some money together. And so he kind of becomes his manager and gets him into places that he couldn't on his own. You know, a big black guy is just like, hey, someone pay me to fight.
And because he's older and stuff, everyone's like writing him off, like, oh, this guy probably can't fight. And like, I imagine like when he was younger, he was clean shaven and stuff, and now he's got this big gray beard and stuff, like clearly still stocky or whatever. So it's like, all right, put him in an amateur fight and we'll see what the kid's got. And you know, of course, he's just like wailing on dudes and stuff. And then, you know, they build a friendship, and he's like, I'm gonna help you get out of here. Or like maybe he saw him when he was a kid and recognized him as like, but my dad took me to this, and I just thought it was real. Like I didn't like it and stuff. And then, you know, maybe the guy's like even gay, and you could sort of like, I have a secret and you have a secret, and it's like I'm not that like, yeah, you could just do something. It's just a character idea.
He could be a junkie.
Yeah. Or just a nice guy.
Or just a nice guy.
And they just form a friendship, and then at the end, you know, helps him and his son, helps his son get away and stuff. And it's just like, you know, I was friends with your dad, and here's the horses, and we're gonna ride off. And then they just get to wherever. They get to New York City, so it's not as bad up there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, and you could have the Christoph Waltz character, like, after they've had some fights or whatever, or whatever, how you want to do it. Like, I saw you as a kid. I hated it. My dad thought I was a little faggot for not, like, being a part of this. He disowned me, and he also got into these fights and stuff. I saw how he treated his own slaves, and he was bad. And so he gets our main character to kill his father, or, you know, at least, it's like, you help get me close enough and I'll do it. Like, they recognize me, or if I pretend I'm bringing some prize fighter for him, I could get close enough to kill him. Something like that. Just something that bonds them. And so it's just like, hey, I'm a white person and I can get you into a fight. You know, they gotta help each other. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he had like a signature punch or something, and then like in the alley where he's getting beat up and he like breaks it up, he uses that signature punch, and that's how he like, oh wait. Or inverse of the ending is, after these guys become friends, he's like, if we end up in the woods, I mean, they take us out to this spot in the woods where they take all the slaves they're going to kill or whatever, and it's like a known thing or whatever. So when the father and son are there and they're about to get killed, he shows up and kills them, and it's like, I'll take the blame for this. And like, because you did some sort of kindness for me, it's like, get out of here, I'll be okay. They'll just send me in jail, but he knows he's going to die and whatever, so they have a nice moment. And then, but then again, I don't necessarily want to make it like the white savior thing, but either way, like, our heroes could get away that way, and that character who now the audience has grown to like, because he has given our main character, you know, a sense of purpose and hope, and like has helped him, you know, in this tough time, you know, sacrifice himself so these guys can get away. You could do something like that too.
What if he is the son of the Calvin Candy character? And so he saw his father doing this, and he saw tons and tons of fights, and he eventually ran away, goes to wherever and stuff. He just needs to get away from it. So that's why he's familiar with who our lead is, and then also is like kind of gung-ho to help him get his revenge, free his family and everybody else, because he saw it firsthand. And hey, if his father gets taken down at the same time, why not?
I like it.
Because then he would know where they take the slaves to shoot him and stuff like that, and he could be waiting, and it would be, I could see him coming out and just be like, you know, doing the Christoph Waltz thing of like pulling the gun on Calvin Candy and shooting him, and like doing that to his own dad, and then that's enough time for them to break free and fight their way out, and then he could get shot by one of the other goons or something like that.
I like it. And I mean, I feel like the obvious title, which like would sound cool, would
be Mandingo.
Yeah, but it's like, you can't there's no way a studio would allow that, because like you can't go up to like the box office and be like, let me get a ticket for Mandingo, please. Like, it would make so many people uncomfortable.
One for the M word?
Can I one ticket to the Spike Lee joint, please?
Just like the ticket or the box office person would be like, say it. Fucking say it.
I don't know what movie you're talking about. Who's Spike Lee? It's like the one with Jamie Foxx in it. Jamie Foxx, never heard of him. No. We got these movies. You can tell me which.
Yeah. The second one down. I ain't good at reading.
I also don't know numbers. So.
Say the fucking word. You know who I was imagining as the father, the fighter, this whole time?
Is it Idris Elba?
No.
Because we just been talking about him.
No. Tyrese from Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
He's thick. He's beefy. Yeah. Like, even though he's a bit older, I would bet that guy can destroy someone if he punched him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's built enough for it, but I think Jeffrey Wright probably has a good look for it too.
Oh, that's really old. You're getting real old.
Well, I don't mean, like, I'm not saying he's... I just think, like, with his voice and, like...
His voice, but that guy's not big.
I think he could get big, though.
There's a HBO... I was thinking of, like, Michael Clark Duncan, you know? Like, big dude.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally, I'm not saying... I think he'd just be good in the role. I'm not saying body-wise he's perfect for it or whatever. I think he's got, like, a great voice, and he's a great actor, and I think he would encapsulate that, like, dangerous, like, tough guy while also having, like, a clear... underlining of like someone with like thoughts and feelings and emotion and stuff. Like, I think he could really ride that line of being like, I've done so much horrible stuff, but like still like you would feel for him. Mm-hmm. I think Jeffrey Wright would be really good at that. I'm not saying he has the body to do it, and yes, he's old, but I want the character to be like in his 50s.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
At least in his 50s, because his son will be 20 something at this point, so you know, maybe 40s, because everyone just had kids young back then. Okay. So Jeffrey Wright's not my first choice per se, but he's someone, if you could get Jeffrey Wright but bigger and maybe a little bit younger. Okay.
For the
son?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes. Son friend. I would like Walton Goggins, because he has the perfect face and voice to be the shitty plantation owner. Mm-hmm. Like, he's great to be that southern asshole, but I would like to see him play the good guy.
Yeah. I would like to see Walton Goggins in anything, so I'm cool with that. I think, well, I'm glad you said, because we talked about actors we really like. Mm-hmm. So Walton Goggins looks creepy, but good guy. For the plantation owner, for a total jerk, but like looks handsome, Patrick Wilson.
I mean, they're too close in age, and I bet Walton Goggins is even older.
Oh, I forgot we're doing this father-son thing.
Yeah, if we are. If not, you know, that's fine. It's just like, we can't see him watch our lead as a kid.
You're right, yeah.
If the plantation owner is also a kid.
They could be brothers.
I think, like, take someone who's, like, a John Goodman would be good.
Yeah.
But I think of like a really nice guy, like a nice Santa Claus looking guy, like somebody you just like, man, I wish that was my grandpa, but you make him a disgusting piece of shit.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'd be good in essentially any role. But it's like, I mean, you know, he can be menacing from Hannibal Lecter and stuff like that.
Let's get an American. I don't want no fucking... Wait, what is... Yeah, he's just British, right?
I believe he's British.
Okay. Yeah, like...
English of some kind.
I'm sick of this English actors doing their American accent. Like, friggin' Benedict Cumberbatch and stuff. Like, yeah, I buy it, I guess, but it's just off enough.
Okay.
Let's get a real good old American boy.
You can get a Stephen Lang. Because, you know, he's very menacing looking, but also quite up there in age.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do a moment where maybe they our lead and him fight, like he'd be a believable older man to sort of balance that fight. It's like, yeah, he's old, but clearly he's been like, he loves watching fights because he's been like, he was in fights growing up, and maybe that's how he like
was
made
a boxer, and then
maybe that's how he made his money.
Maybe he got blind in an eye or something, so he can't fight anymore. And so then he's
just only allowed to play partially blind characters.
Shit. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I was picturing like Stephen Root, you know,
yeah,
someone
that's how
fat and just kind of like, oh no, don't hit me.
Yeah.
But making him like a former fighter himself. That's why he's in this business. And he's not afraid of anybody because it's like he can hit back.
And maybe he even like does the training himself, like he's so involved, and like that's why a lot of these fighters like fighting for him. Not only because clearly he like despises them, and like we'll probably have scenes where he just clearly like thinks that they're lesser than or whatever. But you know, they like him because it's like, oh, he's training me himself. Like, he wants me to win. He cares for me. Like, you have this sort of, like, Stockholm Syndrome mentality of just, like, yeah, he's not training me to lose. He wants me to win so he can, like, you know, so I can do this for him. He's, you know, he's a father figure to these fighters, even though he, like, doesn't care about them at all. He might even, like, hate them.
Yeah. I can see him just, like, doing the training, and, like, the guy fucks up, and it's just kind of like, I know you and your brain can't handle too much information at one time, like just totally belittling them the whole time and gaslighting them to thinking that they're worthless, but doing everything he can to get them to win.
Because I don't know, I haven't done research on, you know, slave mentality, but I'd be interested. Like, we have the Samuel Jackson, the Steven character, who's like, you know, stayed in the house and everything and was like very like loved Calvin Candy, but I'd be interested to see, like, could you have, like, when it's so clearly someone hates you and all this other stuff, like having slaves still go like, no, I'm still happy to be here because they've just have it in their brain that like, this guy's good for me, like, you know, whereas like normal people, they go like, oh, he's such a piece of shit, how can anyone work for this guy? It's like, well, here's multiple reasons why they want to be here. I just don't think you've ever seen that in a slave movie person say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like any sort of toxic relationship, like a father and son, and the son is just, you know, constantly beat to death by the dad, but he's like, well, I got to do better. I can't make dad mad, otherwise he's going to hit me. Because
every other movie I've seen, in my memory, is just always just like, well, we're here because we have to be, not because we want to be.
Yeah.
And if we run away, they'll kill us. Well, it's like, okay, we're still like treated like shit, but we want to be here. And I think that could be an interesting dynamic to explore if that sort of mentality was more common than you would think.
And even like he could have like there's no gate here, you could walk out at any time, but if one of those guys find you, they're gonna drag you from the back of their carriage and stuff. Here we got, you know, three hot meals and a place to sleep, and they can see that it's like, I could leave at any time, but it's so much more worse out there than it is in here, even though like they're having to kill people in the ring, and it could be someone that they know, someone that they used to work in a field with before, or someone who's in that, like, oh, there's no good fights, okay, I'll just take two of my guys, and it's just like, fuck, I gotta kill my guy that I sleep next to that guy, like we share the same house.
And you can even have a scene where maybe, you know, they do something mean to him or whatever, and he's just like, all right, I have enough of this, and you see him walking out the door and like walking towards the exit, and it gets to like the edge of the property, and like maybe he kind of hesitates for a moment when he's scared, or maybe even like he's for lack of a better term, I'm just gonna keep saying Calvin Candy, is like behind him and is just going like, hey man, if you want to go, it's, and like they have a nice moment, and he like seems genuine, is like, look, I'm sorry, like I didn't mean to say those things to you, like just come on back, you know daddy will take care of you, right? And just like, you know, and the guy's just like so afraid, he doesn't know anything else, so of course he goes back, and I like the idea of toxic relationship, and you know, maybe, you know, you think like maybe for a second this guy does have some humanity in him, and the next day he's like, well, you know, I was being serious about all that stuff I said, but like I can't seem weak to all the other fighters, so I gotta punch you a little bit, and not necessarily like whip him or anything, but it's like, now we took away your bed or something, like, or like that you do something where it's like clearly I'm still shitting on you, but it's like, well, it's better than the alternative kind of thing.
I can see him doing that, like, yep, that's the road you can take, and you could go wherever you want, but it's better to stay here with me. And it's like, yeah, you're right, boss. And as he's walking back, has his arm around him and just be like, look, I understand it, but I'm only going to whip you 5 times this time because you came back.
And it's like, I appreciate that.
Thanks, boss. And it's like, yeah, you forced my hand. They could have been 20, but I'm only going to give you 5. Oh, much appreciated. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
I like it.
It's good shit.
Yeah. I'd write this movie. Do we have any other titles?
Mandingo for broke.
Who's the Mandingo?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's like, what other terms of the time?
I mean, part of me feels like if a studio gave notes, it'd be like The Fightin' Slave or something like that. It'd just be some really dumb title.
Yeah.
And it's like, part of me is like, do you call it like Black Fist? But then that sounds like a superhero movie.
Or a Black Power sort of fist in the air.
I mean, I think there's already been like a poster, but like of like a hand going up like a black, but like with a chain, like breaking off a chain or something.
I think it's the Django poster.
Is it the Django? Like, that's what I thought. I was like, okay, yeah. Darn. Well, we're getting into poster stuff. I just wish it wasn't offensive to say Mandingo.
Yeah. And you know what? If anybody... Okay, here's another thing. All these ideas are for sale. If you are a writer and you think, damn, they really nailed that, stupid sci-fi movie, and you want to buy it for us, we're cheap. We will sell these ideas relatively cheap. Like, we're not looking for too much, but...
You can buy it for cheap, and then, because studios buy scripts and they never get made all the time. But if it does get made, then we get some of that cheddar.
I'm not even too picky about that. Like, yeah, it would suck if we thought of a movie, someone wrote it, and then it made, $1 billion, and it's like, man, that could have been us. No, it wouldn't. We didn't write it. We only had an idea. If we get a $50,000 check before an idea... They could have all the rights.
Well, I don't know how Hollywood works, so that might be a $50,000 idea that's worth something. But I'm not saying like royalties or whatever like that, because clearly that's not how it's. But it's like if you sold your script for $100,000, and I'll even go as far as this: if you want us to like get on Zoom and like back and forth, and we can like we can be story writers for you, but not write the actual script, and you write the script, and like
idea
it gets
by Ben and Steve,
story by us, written by you. Great. And then we get credits in the movie. I'll sit on a Zoom call, and we can talk it out and go scene by scene and pitch ideas. Maybe you think we're a bunch of stupid heads who just had a solid idea.
Yeah,
that's great.
You heard the idea of Django and the Wrestler, and it made your brain go. You heard Django and the Wrestler, and it gave you an incredible idea, and you took it in a different direction, but you don't want to get sued by us, so you just are throwing us a bone? That's cool, too. Cover your bases.
But if we write it, which we won't. But if we write it, and it gets made, aren't you going to look stupid?
You could have bought this for $50,000.
Yeah. So, I actually... really like this movie.
Yeah. I'm gonna write down Mandingo, but I'm not happy about it.
I don't know if we can release this podcast just for the amount of times we've said it, but there's really no other term for it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because there's The Fighter, but that's a Mark Wahlberg movie. There's The Wrestler. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's
based on. I mean, if he had a really cool name and it's like...
Oh, yeah, if you had a wrestling or a fighter name.
Fighter name or something, and it's like... the 27 fights of whatever his name is. And it's like, okay, well, because we know he's going to fight 27 times, that works or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think any sort of wrestling name that a plantation owner would think of is probably going to be worse than Mandingo.
I can't even say.
Yeah.
not even the N-word, just like other variants of it. I think you would just, maybe you would just call him...
Yeah. He's called the Plow. Because when the ox died, he put the plow on his back and he was able to plow the field. Oh, he's the plow, and he plows through his opponents.
Let's say we were great writers. Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, would we even be like allowed to write this kind of movie?
No,
but then again,
this gets farmed out to someone else. We pitched it to studios and they go, we love it, kid. We want a 2-page treatment. And we write our general ideas and stuff and they go, great, we have writers for this. And they pass it off to people who know history, understand black culture, and aren't going to constantly be saying Mandingo.
Fair enough, I'll take it.
All right, those were 2 excellent movies. Well, 1 excellent movie and 1, it'd be fine depending on how you made it.
Yeah.
At least we had like a singular vision on this. We both instantly kind of saw the same thing, whereas the other one, it's like our genres were a little wishy-washy.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, I think that was good.
I really like that Fighting Slave movie. I think that'd be cool. It has Oscar potential, if you ask me.
It really does.
But so, I imagine a lot of people think that too when they start writing something, and then it's like, no, it's not. Yeah. But if done right, I think it could be handled.
Yeah.
Oh well, let's. Do you have any directors that you would imagine? I think the obvious choice is Tarantino, because this feels like a very Tarantino movie, but it's like just so close to Django that it doesn't really make.
You get anyone like, what's his name, who did 12 Years a Slave?
Steve McQueen.
Yeah, But I'm sure they don't want to do another slave movie, so.
Yeah, I don't think any director wants to be the slave movie guy.
Let's get
Mel Brooks.
Jordan Peele.
Oh.
Because it's like, I'm just picturing like, they had their sketch where they were both no, you're going to hit me.
Can a brother get on a lot, eh?
Yeah. Like, I think he could find some humor in this, but also...
I think he'd write the friendship dynamic really well. Like, he could, him and Keegan-Michael Key could do that. So they've done that thing, so that makes sense. So, be friends. You get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. That's going to be my pick. I think...
I regret not thinking of it sooner. I think that's a great choice.
Especially for, like, how his career is going. It's like, I can see him eventually getting to something that is period piece, but maybe kind of heighten reality a little bit. Because you could probably play this, like, super gritty, or you play it a little more like Django, where it's like, this isn't the real world,
Like, I know he sort of leans towards the horror genre as of right now, but I think after this next movie, which I assume is a horror movie just based on that poster, or maybe like a horror sci-fi kind of thing if it's alien based, I definitely see him leaning into towards the more dramatic route, I think he could do some really cool stuff.
We have a fun little segment where we like to pit directors against each other and who can make a better movie in their own style. For example, would you rather watch Michael Bay's Star Wars or George Lucas's Transformers? And then you see, well, who's going to make a better version of that? I think we've kind of, and I just want to answer that question. I think we've kind of seen what a Michael Bay Star Wars would be like. Like, it's not so far-fetched from Rise of Skywalker, just big bombastic action, stupid story, dumb characters. I can imagine that. I cannot imagine George Lucas's Transformers. Like, is it going to be more like Phantom Menace, like that era and everything's CG? Or is he going to try to use more practical stuff? So that's the movie I want to see.
Yeah. I agree. I think, like, it just depends on what studio notes they give to George, because part of me thinks, like, oh, maybe if he went with Star Wars and then, that was all like 80s stuff, and Transformers was at their height in animated form. It's like, all right, George, we want you, like, we know space stuff. Transformers is selling huge for us. Make a Transformers movie. And he watches that show or whatever. It's like, okay, like, this is all Cybertron stuff. Maybe, like, he might have been the guy to take them and just keep it all about Transformers and not necessarily have a human element.
Yeah.
Now, budget, I'm not saying, like, they would have the budget back then or the technology to, like, make that good. Obviously, like, he has all the technology of the day to make whatever he wants. I'm just imagining, like, that might have been a good time to pitch that to George. But I think he might actually have some good ideas and keep it just between Transformers and not, or if there is a human, just keep it like the one guy. It's not a bunch of nonsense. I don't know if he would really have a hot take or if he would just adapt whatever's already there, but I think it'd be less ridiculous. It couldn't be more ridiculous than what we've seen from Transformers.
Yes. It'd be less chaotic for sure.
I mean, I wanted to give up on the franchise after watching the third one. I saw the fourth one, and it made me physically angry.
Did you see the fifth one?
No.
It's just as bad,
yeah,
if not worse.
So I find it hard to believe that George... You can say what you want about George and the sequels or whatever, but I think he would make far better Transformers movies than Michael Bay would make Star Wars movies.
Absolutely. But I wouldn't mind seeing Michael Bay do something so crazy sci-fi fantasy. Not take a sci-fi element and put it on Earth, like The Island or Transformer or something like that. Let's see him go nuts. And it's like, yeah, we saw Armageddon. Yeah, it's in space, but it's kind of grounded in Michael Bay's reality.
Right.
What happens when he does get space travel, laser swords, and evil aliens and stuff like that? It'd be interesting to see what he would do, but
it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I kind of imagine it just being like a John Carter of Mars kind of thing.
Ooh, yeah.
I think that would be Michael Bay's sort of space. Not saying necessarily he would make John Carter.
Yeah.
Specifically.
It would look like that.
Yeah. Very just CGI heavy and just like, here's a human character doing crazy stuff.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a toned down version of what Michael Bay would have done.
It'd definitely be bigger.
A lot more flying airships crashing into each other, but yeah, you're
maybe a little bit of Avatar in terms of like big battle sequences, but more John Carter in terms of like not caring about the story.
Sure. Yeah, and it's like, I love James Cameron, and it's a shame that I can see that Michael Bay's Avatar would probably be pretty close to that.
Yeah, a little bit now. Yeah, I think.
I mean, it's just like James Cameron gets characters better, for sure. But,
think about it.
Yeah.
It's there.
Don't make me. All right, so have you picked a director?
I have, and I've picked... Maybe it's not his biggest movie, but it's his most well-known movie, even if it's not his most financially successful movie.
All right. We don't have to say them at the same time because it's too long.
Okay. You go first, because I like my pick.
David Fincher's Fight Club.
Oh, interesting. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
I haven't seen Do the Right Thing.
Oh, you haven't?
But I guess it doesn't matter. I've seen other Spike Lee movies.
Yeah, but it's like, you kind of need to know the movie. It's like, what would his version be? I picked...
That's the one where he throws the trash can through the pizza joint, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the reason I think Do the Right Thing works so well is because it's clearly a very personal story to Spike Lee, and I don't think you could really replicate it with a white director, but I wanted to see you try.
Yeah, I definitely would rather watch Spike Lee's Fight Club. It'd be really interesting to see what he could do with that. Mm-hmm. I don't think Spike Lee is an amazing director. There's things that I like, things that I don't like. Like, his Old Boy is terrible. Mm-hmm. But what's the one with Clive Owen in the bank job?
Inside Man? Inside Man's great. I love Inside Man.
Probably his best movie that I've seen. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen, like, Poetic Justice or anything like that, so it's hard for me to...
I've probably seen more Spike Lee movies than you, but I haven't seen much of his old stuff other than Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing. Like, I saw Miracle at, like, St. Anna, which I didn't really care about. But anyway...
Did he do that Netflix? Yeah, he did a Netflix. The Five Bloods, right?
The Five Bloods,
Did you see that?
I did.
That was pretty... I heard it's pretty harrowing and awful. Like, terrible that people had to go through that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it talked about stuff with Vietnam and, like, you know, killing babies and stuff like that, and, like, had, like, pictures from the actual war, which was all very, like... It's crazy what, you know, America, just soldiers in general have to go through.
David Fincher's Do the Right Thing. Now, if he's... Now, we're not saying, like, he has to shoot that same script, because, like, when we were talking about what's Michael Bay's Star Wars, we're not saying he has to make this Star Wars movie. We're not saying George Lucas has to make this Transformers movie. They're making their own.
Yeah.
So David Fincher, he's an excellent director who's really good with characters and dialogue. I think he probably could make a very good Do the Right Thing. whether it is still a black story or if he changes it to any other ethnicity, I think he would be able to tell a really good story. I can't see him having trouble like shooting that exact script.
Mm-hmm.
He may just not have the personal stuff.
Yeah.
But it would be, if he's using Spike Lee's actual script, I think that movie would be perfectly fine. But I'm not running out to watch it. Yeah.
Well, I think he could have the script and it could be fine. I agree with that. I think there's just nuances and character choices and like things that would be so specific to the environment, it would come off as disingenuous if done by someone else. And I'm not even talking about like, you know, doing scene for scene or whatever, just like how people dress and how people walk and talk and stuff. It's like some of that could be written in the script, but I think you would miss a lot of it because I don't imagine Fincher's ever been to this sort of environment. But I think Fincher would necessarily not do this script, but do the aftermath of this script. So if you have Do the Right Thing, but it's okay, a big part of the movie is a character gets choked out by the police, and Fincher does thrillers and stuff. It's like, okay, so the crowd is now erupted because the police just killed an unarmed black man and everyone's upset and there's a bunch of racial tension in the city. And it's like, okay, now the story that Fincher would do the right thing is like, do these cops do the right thing in terms of like, you know, they're gonna cover up for their buddies, they're gonna like go through the community and like try, and it's like, or maybe Mookie, Spike Lee's character, maybe he's the only one to see this go down, and it's like, does he do the right thing and talk like get justice for Radio Raheem as the character who gets choked out, and then it's like a battle between, you know, a black man and the entire police force. It's like, is there a cover-up? Is there corruption? Does he uncover stuff? And it just becomes a thriller of like, is this man, is he going to just become another statistic like Radio Raheem? And then just the tension of that whole aftermath. So I think Fincher could make a pretty good, it wouldn't be a personal movie, it'd just be, you could sort of have the same themes of Do the Right Thing and have the same characters, but it wouldn't be the Do the Right Thing movie itself.
Maybe he'd be better at a sequel or telling that same story just from a different perspective, because if he's telling from the cop side, he could have a little, you know.
Yeah. I think Fincher would have a different, not only approach, but a different message of what he's trying to get across. It's like the police who were supposed to do the right thing all the time, I don't know if you necessarily make them the police sympathetic characters, maybe, because those the police characters in Do the Right Thing are clearly like assholes.
And isn't one like one's white, one's black?
Yeah, but I think that offers an interesting dynamic too.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, you have a black man chokes out. He's not the one who kills Radio Raheem, but he is part of the group that does. Mm-hmm. And then it's, you know, how does he feel in the situation? You know, he's no longer black, he's blue, kind of stuff. And you could do a lot of interesting things, and it'd just be interested to see. Like, that could be a sequel I could imagine happening. I mean, if you say if there was a news article that said David Fincher doing a sequel to Do the Right Thing, you'd be like, what the fuck? It's like, only Spike Lee can make Do the Right Thing too. But I don't think Spike Lee would ever do the Right Thing too. And if he did, I'd be like, why?
Yeah. Hey, you never know. Sometimes people come back to a thing because they actually have a story they want to tell, and they realize, oh shit, this could just be a sequel to that.
Yeah.
Might as well.
But we've been talking about. So what would Spike Lee's Fight Club be?
Spike Lee's Fight Club. Now, see, Fight Club, not one of my favorite David Fincher movies. I think there's probably at least 3 of his movies that are better than Fight Club, but I digress. It has a really good look, really grimy at times, and he knows where to put a camera, and he knows how to hire the best lighting guys and set decorators and stuff like that. His movies always look great, whereas I don't think there is a lot of visual flair when it comes to Spike Lee. His movies seem pretty standard. They're just more interesting stories. I mean, I could be wrong, but isn't Da 5 Bloods a little more stylish than anything else he's done?
No, I wouldn't say it's particular. Like, there's shots, like the flashback sequences are shot like on cameras that you would see from like the 70s, so they're like a grainier look, so it's not as clean as like modern day cameras. So there's that element to it, but it's not as flashy as like Do the Right Thing, where like characters are like talking directly into the camera and all this other stuff. But yeah, it's not particularly flashy.
Okay. It would be interesting to see what he would do with this concept. He's just shooting Fincher's script. I can't see it being anything special, but if he's putting his own life into it, and it was, say, Fight Club is more of a black film, how different does it change? Is it still some guy who's just like bored with his life and commercialism and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you could take two black actors, remake the script word for word, and it would work as well. Probably not. I think instead of just being like a bunch of white guys in a basement like upset with society, like because their lives are boring, it'd just be a group of black guys in a basement beating each other up because they're angry at the world. And so it's like, okay, these corporations fuck us on the daily, and black people are paying for it, like we can't move up in the world and all that stuff. So that's their goal. It's just like, we are slaves to the system, we just don't recognize it anymore. And so this is their sort of revenge. It's like, we're going to take all of our debt down to zero, so now black people are on an even keel and we can move up. And I think that's your angle.
Yeah, you're pretty much telling the same exact story and getting to the same sort of conclusions, but the motivating factors are different.
Yeah.
So that, I think he could make that be an interesting story, but I do think I'd rather watch that. I would rather see what Spike Lee can do with Fight Club than David Fincher can do with Do the Right Thing.
Because it's the same movie, just different motivating factors, like you said, and that's what Spike Lee's doing. David Fincher, he's not making Do the Right Thing. He's making something completely different. And if you're making something completely different, you can always argue better or worse because it's something non-existent. Where I think I would rather see Spike Lee do a movie with the same thing, but his take on it versus David Fincher. Like, we just pitched a whole new movie into a David Fincher movie as opposed to David Fincher doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It still could be a great movie, but we're giving him a handicap because he can't. We're saying he's not qualified to tell the black experience.
Yes. But we also have seen Spike Lee do someone else's work. We've seen him do his version of Oldboy. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not seen it. I had no desire to.
It's not good. I would say like that has an interesting like color palette. It's not an ugly looking film. It's just like a poorly told and a weaker, store brand version of something that is much, much better. So would we get the same of that? It's like, yeah, I recognize the Fight Club in this, but man, it is such a dull version.
I'm imagining these movies as the other ones don't exist in this universe.
Okay. Sure.
So it's not like, okay, Fight Club came out, here it is again 20 years later, but now Spike Lee's directing the remake of it. It's Spike Lee made this because no one else has ever made Fight Club before.
But it's hard to separate yourself from that because we are saying, like, which one do you want to see in this hypothetical world?
Well, sure, yes, of course. And this is all just opinion and, take it with a grain of salt because it's hard to imagine a world. Like, we've been changed by Fight Club. You've never been changed by Do the Right Thing, but we're saying, I would rather see this version or whatever. But what I will say about both these directors, I think they're both qualified in their own right and have both made great stuff. It's just a matter of, like, David Fincher, I think, has a better body of work, clearly, but Spike Lee offers something that a lot of other directors don't.
Yeah, he definitely has more, I think, personal stake in a lot of his movies, where David Fincher is like, I have an eye that can make this into a great movie. So, yeah, it's just like, what do you want out of your movie? Do you want something that's really good looking, but maybe a little tone deaf? Or do you want something that maybe is a little more bland than it could be, but you can tell an interesting story? And I will always favor story over, like, visuals. So I'm going to go with Spike Lee's Fight Club for director versus director.
And I will second that. So, Spike Lee, congratulations. You win this round. of director versus director.
All right, that was good. If anybody has any ideas of who they want to see us pit against each other, pick two directors, pick two movies. They could be similar, they could be complete opposites, and we'll fight it out for them. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steven.
If you want to get a hold of us, it's wrplpodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at wrplpodcast.
And just so you guys know, Ben doesn't always do the talking. Maybe next episode, I'll be the one who introduces everything.
Yeah, we could switch it up every once in a while. Couldn't hurt. We'll see you next time.